Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap for the 6th of February. For some reason, I want to say it's a Thursday, but it's not. It is a Wednesday that we find ourselves hanging out on. Fairly uneventful day for the broad market as the S&P and the NASDAQ kind of continue to bump their top of their heads on those flat 200-day moving averages, closing very flat on the day here today. So not a whole lot changing from a broad perspective. Earnings do continue to move things, in particular the gaming stocks. EA, Take-Two, we saw EA in the after hours last night. They definitely did not disappoint, at least the bears, as they really sold off, taking Activision Blizzard down with them. Take-Two also a little disappointing on their earnings. Rough day for the gaming stocks. Rough time for the gaming world. As many of you guys know, I'm kind of a dork. I'd love to play me some video games in my free time. And, well, on one hand, it seems like this wasn't going to happen because they seem to be a little disappointing to us lately. So not to say we had anything to do with it, of course. A whole new wave of earnings coming out here this evening. No particularly huge companies before tomorrow's open, but around 25, 30 S&P 500 stocks are reporting before the bell tomorrow. Probably most notably Twitter coming out tomorrow before market open, but we got Matt's favorite, CMG, coming out, Philip Morris. So definitely are winding through earnings as we continue throughout the week. And good afternoon to you as well, Patricia. Always great to see you guys. Hope you had a great day in and out of the market. Definitely one of those days that just kind of was there, right? So definitely some movers, those gaming stocks in particular, boy, they really sold off here today. As we look at the price action from today, it was really a flat day. Definitely a little bit of a flat day here, a little bit of selling early on in the trading day, and then really just back and forth, really going nowhere. Taking a little bit of a pause as we digest these earnings, but from a technical point of view, just seems like it's a little tired. We've had a good run. It's hanging out of that 200. Who wants to be, like I said many times, I'm not overly concerned about that 200, but at the same time, I don't want to be the first one to buy there, right? And I think that's probably how a lot of us feel. So a little consolidation, still not generating any sell signals, even on something as short of a term time frame as that 15-minute chart. So it's not like we are generating new sell signals right now, just a little bit of consolidation from a broad perspective. Looking like that 200 at least is going to act as a bit of short-term resistance for us. Now we're 2 days in a row in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. Here we are in the NASDAQ, a little rougher day. If you want to be crazy, down 0.37%, I wouldn't call that a rough day. Down a little bit more than the S&P. But I think we can kind of, tell, much like the S&P, taking a breather. We're all watching it. We know there's still room beyond it. It's kind of that last thing that is in the way, and at least for another day, we're treating it as such. And hey, Brian, good to see you, my friend. Great to see you. Welcome to the market recap. Always happy to have you guys doing the routine with me, for sure. Over in the Dow, a little more room, not quite as much to work with, closing really flat, 0.08 down on the day, so nothing to see here as we continue to work up. But again, you can see just through the price action on a very tiny little doji, that means there wasn't a lot of movement today from a broad market perspective. So just like our other indexes, really taking a breather as we try to figure this thing out. Again, to me at least, nothing has changed. Still not seeing any sell signals generated from a broad market perspective. No reason in my mind to change our bias from where it was really all week long. Still have some room to go, just not going to fill up that space quite as easy in our broad markets as we did, say, in the industrial sector. So a really flat day from top to bottom here in the overall market. Over in materials, it still continues to generate really any momentum. really nothing has changed. Maybe it's time to be thinking a little more sideways with a side of bullish until we come out of this little back and forth. I don't know if I'm there quite yet. Certainly I'm nowhere near bearish, and at least technically above 52, and unless something new develops, I won't be. But definitely we've seen it develop over the last little while, and it seems like it's having a little bit of a tough time. A little movement yesterday, no follow through at all here today. Now, a flat day in the market, understandable that, didn't light the world on fire or anything like that, but really kind of stuck. Interestingly, we continue to hover above that 9 EMA, continues to act as intraday support for us. So certainly no sell signals here in my mind, but maybe just not quite ready to move like some of our areas were. Although I'm going to say that because when I said that on Monday, we had a nice little pop. So maybe that's the key. Push down a little bit on energy here today. I'm going to move this just so for just a moment. As we all know, we've got some pretty serious history around that $65 mark. A lot of history for that matter. Showing a little bit of downward movement off of that here today. We bumped our head into it, this week. Finally seeing a little bit of movement to the downside. This is just going to be a tough fight, right? We knew it going into it that we should expect it to be. You never know the future, but we knew that if there was going to be an area, this was probably it. We're continuing to battle over there, still well above our moving averages. Nothing really has changed technically over there. 65 just clearly is, I should say approximately 65, because that is definitely more of a zone than a number. I think 65 is a good place to call it, as good as any, but still haven't cleanly taken that out. So not enough in my mind to go bearish, hasn't done anything wrong at this point in time. Going to need at least a little bit more development if we're going to see sellers really come in off of that resistance level, I think. Not surprised that we're struggling there, though. Like I've said many times, I remember last spring watching it go back and forth there for weeks on end. So we have definitely played in this ballpark before. Not a whole lot to see, but definitely one of our weaker areas, down 0.74%. So as far as biggest losers on the day, wasn't the biggest loser, but it was one of our bigger losers at a whopping 0.74%. Financials still having a hard time. Positive note, they hang out and they keep trying and they keep pushing towards that old resistance level. They've kind of taken out that 26 zone. I think most traders would probably feel that closing above 26 yet again here today, but we do have that sitting on top of us. So I am encouraged by the movement. We've had opportunities for profit taking, haven't seen those really come to fruition. We just still have some overhead that we have to deal with from a broad perspective in this sector right now. Love it if and when we break it. Need to see it happen for new trades. Not a lot has changed over there. Still some pretty good room to work once we do take out that resistance level in my mind. I'm impressed with the fight that it's put up. It's just not won, but it certainly has not lost. Industrials, once again, closing in the green on a pretty flat day, not by much, but a victory is a victory, right? As we really worked almost up to that swing high on the intraday, closing for the second day in a row above that 200-day moving average. Still, in my mind, very strong, very extended. Wouldn't mind a pullback from a broad perspective. Don't know that I'm going to get one necessarily, but we do continue to hold that momentum over in the industrial sector. We are dealing with some resistance for the first time in a bit, though, right? We've got to keep an eye on that. If we do see some profit taking off of that price point, would make some sense, I think, to me at least. But again, you have to like its wherewithal. Definitely closing in the green again, not by much, but closing the green, if you're a bull at least, is better than a close in the red, right? So technology carrying on, having a pretty decent day. Definitely a benefactor of the recent sector shakeup, because the gaming stocks used to be here. Now they're over in communication services. And now, well, that was our big loser on the day. Hey, Cody, good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the recap. Always room for one more over here, my friend. Great to see you. A nice little trade I saw Cody made on the here today. Always a good thing. So over in tech, like I said, I mean, really benefited, because a year ago, EA, Activision Blizzard, Take-Two, even Google were over in here. And today, no, not so much. So their bad day Does not reflect poorly on our friends in the technology sector, continuing to work our way up, getting closer to resistance over here too. Little more room to go, but we are approaching that challenge. Again, is that a place to go bearish? Not in my opinion, at least certainly not until sell signals develop there, but certainly something we can watch. A little more room to run though, in my opinion, in the technology sector. Loving how it's performed, filling up that space very, very nicely. And good afternoon, Shirley. Great to see you. Hope you had a great day trading and out of the market too. And hope you guys aren't getting as much snow. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Shirley. Nothing has changed from a technical point of view. I'm a little lower at 280 on the SPY than you are. That's just a me thing versus a you thing. It's not about, I have to be right or you have to be wrong or vice versa. But I don't think anything has technically changed from where we were really at all this week from a broad market perspective. So I know you were at 282 last week. I haven't seen anything that would make me change that opinion just yet. Yeah, I'd like to see the S&P break through that 200 average, right? That would be helpful to get up towards that resistance. But again, taking a breather there, that's okay. That's okay as well. We love it when they go straight up or straight down if we're in them, right? But we know that that's not always how it's going to play out, or probably even most of the time that's how it's going to play out. Tech continues to be strong, though. Certainly one of the stronger areas. Little more room to go, not too far from where we're going to have to be challenging some resistance as we look at these things on an individual basis. But loving how it's behaving. Over in staples, we're hanging out. You guys know my opinion on staples right now. It's got to clear 54. It's got to clear that trend line before I'm on board. I get that there are signals. Not much to see here today. Probably not enough to change your mind. If you were like me and not comfortable with it from a broad perspective, I don't think today changed your mind. If you think I'm a giant wimp and are playing this breakout from last week, I don't think anything happened today to change your mind. I would keep an eye on that trend line at around $54. We've seen the struggle that we've had in the utility sector. We haven't really sold off, but we've definitely been struggling there. But certainly momentum does remain overall bullish. I'm just a wimp, not afraid to admit it, never will be. So not a lot to see over here. I mean, it was a dull day. We saw some movers. Cody, you found one of the movers out there, my friend. There were a lot of not movers here today. No doubt about it. Speaking of our boys in utility, another day hanging out at 55, hanging out of that trend line, showing some pretty good strength, not selling off of it, but not showing enough strength to push us through. Yeah, it was TXN. I wanted to say TSN, and I knew it wasn't Tyson. I knew it was the semiconductor, so Texas Instruments. I had the T and the N. I just couldn't remember the middle letter. Again, for me, you got to clearly take this out. Now, with the way that we've been behaving up at this resistance level, because whether you're looking at this old trend line or the old history at 55, I think everyone would agree that there is some resistance in that ballpark to be pushing this down, or to be at least potentially pushing it down. We're hanging in there. We're now going on a week of testing that, really haven't sold off. So overall showing positive momentum. Might be time, if you are interested in utilities, might be time to start going through that watch list, seeing if there's any breakout candidates that might be appealing if and when we do break out. I was personally, you guys know me, I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy here. I wasn't, at least from a bullish point of view. But now we're putting up a fight. So maybe there could be some interesting breakouts developing late week or early next week. We got to break it, and I'm never going to hold my breath. You got to break resistance before you broke resistance, right? As dorky as that sounds, it is true. Not a lot to see there, but we are putting up a heck of a fight at that resistance level. Healthcare, again, more mixed earnings here today in the healthcare sector, pushing up, closing in the green, one of our better performing sectors here today. Not a lot has changed technically. We are starting to put together now that week-long ceiling and floor little consolidation period. I love when that stuff happens. Haven't seen anything just yet, but pushing through the top of that range, to me at least, is going to be a buy signal. Definitely like this sector because there is room in a lot of the stocks in this sector to the upside, for me at least, I think. So that will be something I will be keeping an eye on. Above 90, I think is really kind of that first line of defense, as we've talked before. But really, it's a swing low. As long as this holds with the way the chart looks today, I'd have a hard time broadly being bearish. So still putting up a fight, still a few earnings here to come at LH. You had a couple other healthcare stocks coming out tonight or tomorrow as well. So pretty heavy week still ahead of these guys, but holding their own. And this is exactly what I wanted to see happen. I want to get through this week relatively unchanged and then break next week. Will I get it? We'll have to see. So, and hey, no problem, Abel. Great to see you, my friend. Always a pleasure to have you with us. No worries. Better late than never. And I hope you're doing well. So this is what I wanted. 2 more days, get me into Monday and break out. Yeah, there we go. We'll see, right? As I said many times, it never hurts to ask. Knowing what you want and why you want it, never a bad thing. Worst case scenario, I don't get it. So yeah, surely, yeah. So I think, for me, that's a secondary. I'm going to be looking at this 93 as my first level. I'm fairly, wimpy in that regard. I always go the path of least resistance, if you will. I think one step at a time. That's just my approach to evaluating and trading the markets. Don't really, once we take out this 93.50 or thereabout, we're pushing all-time highs. Nothing in between that and our next level. So I do continue to overall like this, but we're not seeing that break just yet. And still some earnings that could throw some cold water on this thing. But I have to say, I couldn't have asked for a better week. Sideways, up a little, down a little, doing nothing, not generating any signals one way or another. Maybe I get that break. We will soon see. Another back and forth day in the discretionary sector, as it's just, again, we talked about it needing a break. Of course, then I had that nice big pop yesterday on some earnings. Here today, much like our broad market, just kind of hanging out at that resistance level. Now a third test in a row. We've had 3 trading candles over the last 5 where we've used that same level of intraday resistance. Pushing through that should make it a pretty easy run, in my mind, up into 110. I know that's not a lot of room on the ETF, but that is more room, certainly. So I do think that we continue to maintain over here. Need a little break, take a little breather. Certainly, again, not seeing any sell signals generate over here. So no reason to believe it's not just hanging out at resistance, waiting for a potential break, which I will be waiting for patiently. Of course, yesterday we saw the real estate take out technically that resistance level. Ilka and I were kind of talking about, looking at how you play situations like this. It's that follow through. We've seen it many times together here in the market recap, where we saw a lot in utilities, right? Where we break one day, no follow through whatsoever the next. If we can't even break, go back in time, if we couldn't break yesterday's high today, we weren't ready to continue that breakout, right? And this is why I take that approach. I know Ilka takes that approach as well. This is why, I want to see that follow through. That really, really matters to me. Now, have I changed my opinion on real estate? No. Do I still want to pull back? Absolutely. I would love one. Did see a little more selling here today than we've seen the last little bit. Not enough to change anything. This 34.50, though, we know that this has been an area of resistance that we've had to deal with in the past. Not a lot past that until 35. Love to see a pullback. Don't have high hopes that I'm going to get one, but it never hurts to ask. So not a whole lot has changed. A little bit of selling over in real estate here today, though, off of that. Not able to carry over that positive momentum that we were able to generate here yesterday. And probably the most interesting sector here today, our good friends in the communication services. Google was down over 2%. Of course, we know that they're a huge part of this ETF, but this is also where our gaming stocks are. And we were at 14% on EA, something like 11 or 12 on Take-Two, and Activision Blizzard hit a new 52-week low. So, I mean, these gaming stocks, they really got crushed today. No surprise that they're taking down their sector along with them. Not a lot has changed technically, although they might be something to keep an eye on. I would be very cautious as a bull with those gaming stocks, with the way those charts are looking. Will this change the way I'm looking at Facebook or Google or things like that? Not necessarily, not necessarily. But gaming stocks, well, they are on my do not buy list until further notice. Pretty ugly revenue, pretty ugly reports, I think, for those companies. And honestly, not terribly surprised as a gamer. Very disappointed the last couple of years of gaming. So, and hey, Adita, good to see you. Wherever you find yourself, maybe you're not as nerdy as me and don't spend or waste your time playing video games. Definitely some downward movement here today. Definitely down movement. A lot of negativity in certain areas within this sector. Want to be careful if we're looking at it from an ETF point of view. Same time, haven't done anything wrong, right? Didn't do anything wrong other than sell off. Not even taken out a short-term moving average. Certainly haven't taken out our previous level of resistance. We have created higher highs and higher lows on these guys. So not a lot has changed technically, but I do think it's probably, wise to look at this as maybe we are developing into that selling phase, if you will. Still don't love this. Again, those gaming stocks after those earnings, ugh. Well, now I've never needed a reason to not like the communication services sector. And for about a week, I didn't have one, and now I have one again. So, I'm not a huge fan of this, apparently, no matter what it does. 1 week of breakout, regardless of my opinion, of course, you always want to start objectively. We are holding support. We are holding resistance. We are seeing some intraday selling. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, if those video games, I don't expect video game stocks to drop 10% every day by any means, but it's tough. When so many stocks within the sector that make up reasonable percentages of these ETFs are pulling it down. Certainly, I think you can say, if nothing else, surely there's not a buy signal that's generated today. Just because I don't think sell signals have generated doesn't mean that buy signals are there. They might develop. They easily could. And again, we've seen it many times. When something gets cooking, folks aren't afraid to look for an excuse to buy. We'll see them as they develop. I think right now, for me, I'm treating this as it's in the pullback phase, and I will act accordingly. So really not a lot of interesting things, but definitely the communication services fits into the interesting category here today as we work through the individual sectors. So, really right now, broadly speaking, we're just kind of hanging out. Those 200 averages, aren't huge concerns necessarily, but they're there. And obviously, there are at least many levels of resistance that we have to fight our way through. Over the volatility, nothing to see here, right? Volatility does remain low. Traders continue to feel like they're overall in control of things. And volatility index is reflecting that. Carrying over on the dollar. We were looking at that 200, and I didn't think it was a trading opportunity. I wish I would have thought that, but not surprised that we bounced off of that 200 period moving average, working in and actually closing above the 50 here today. I continue to be neutral on this. From a bullish point of view, need to take out this resistance. If we do, again, short term, I would probably expect us to continue this bullish momentum. That would look a little bit like a W, right? Bounce off the 200 to boot. We still got a lot of overhead, 97.50 to 95.50. To me, this is sideways. Interesting day to day to follow. Some days, I've given up on saying I lean this way or that way, because really, all it is I'm neutral and adding something to that for flavor. So really, as long as we're in this range, I will continue to treat it as a range bound. I think that is the right way, at least for me, to be treating the dollar right now. But strong movement today. There is no doubt about it. Really nice bounce off of that 200-day moving average on the dollar index. No doubt about that. Our friends in the metals market are continuing to pull back. We are at 1310 here on gold. Still some pretty good selling here, not generating any buy signals. I don't know that I thought we were going to have a realistic chance to pull back and test that 1300 breakout, but all of a sudden, maybe we are, right? We continue to see downward movement day to day overall. Quite a bit of selling here today, relatively speaking, at least over in the gold market. Not any new signals generated. Love to see a pullback develop. And you know what? I didn't think we would get that when we met together on Monday. All of a sudden, maybe we will. Slowly work our way down into the 1305, get a nice turnaround candle, some upward movement. Maybe we'll get a pullback opportunity here in the metals or over on gold. Of course, silver getting in on the fray, little rougher looking chart. If I'm looking at the metals as a pullback, right now at least, gold is developing a little nicer than silver, I think at least. Nothing has changed. Nothing has really done anything terribly wrong here. Really, we know that we're creating those higher highs and higher lows, and let's go into a weekly chart just to better illustrate that. Pulling back into 13 would be nice from a price point of view. Obviously, on gold at 13, I wouldn't buy sight unseen, But if I were to see some signals develop at that 1300 area, could be something I'd be very interested in. So right now, I don't think there's any reason to suspect that gold's not going to work its way closer, certainly continuing to see short-term momentum to the bearish side on the intraday over in the gold market. Seeing the same thing here on silver. So really isn't a nasty, as maybe as it looks. Pretty big downward day today, over a percent down on silver, but really hasn't done anything wrong. But I think right now, for me, thinking about how to handle the metals, pull back its gold, break out its silver. And that may change in the days to come. It certainly can. Right now, for me, that is how I'm going to approach it. If I get the pullback opportunity, it would be more likely be on the gold. It's just a little cleaner chart. Over in silver, a break above this high. We're a ways away from it, but last week we were hanging out there, right? So we can move pretty quickly. I think for me right now, break out silver, pull back gold could be what I'm looking for. And certainly not tomorrow. The signals definitely aren't there just yet. The sellers are right now short-term in control of these metals, in my opinion. Not seeing any signs of turnaround just yet. May see it as early as tomorrow, but haven't seen it yet. And you got to see it before you act, I think. Over in Natty Gas, hey, it's been a boring week for Natty Gas. After, gapping down to start the week, we're just hanging out, putting together a little bit of an intraday trading range, going to an hourly time frame. Just a nice, solid back and forth floor. Now, I don't know what you do about it. I don't think anything, to be honest with you. A break to the downside, I could see an interest in selling because there's really not a lot of support until we get to that 250. For me, the drill. Natural gas, 3 days of being well behaved is not enough for me to be convinced you're going to be on your best behavior again. I need to see at least 1 week without a fairly substantial gap. So whatever it does, it's going to do it without me. But interesting how we've developed putting together a nice little intraday floor and ceiling for 3 days now in a very tight range. I would imagine from a short-term perspective, when we break either side, there should be a little bit of movement in the short term, probably more applicable to an intraday play than a swing play, though, as it's kind of been the MO with natural gas for months now for me. And lastly, over in crude, continued to move off at a very interesting development in our candle today, bouncing off of the 20, really bouncing nicely as buyers came off of that 20. A little more upward movement. Tomorrow, I could see the argument for an entry point. I wouldn't make that argument. It's got to cleanly break that 55, and I think the easy call is taking out resistance here. I would not be open to a pullback, at least this high of a pullback on crude right now. But I would get it, a little more upward movement. I would understand an aggressive mindset. That would be a much more aggressive trader than I am. That would just be a one-day confirmation. But there are plenty of more aggressive traders out there than I am. I know that for sure. So I still think the break is a much better signal. I think it's always better to wait for the better signal. A 2-day pullback below resistance. Yeah, we closed above 55 once, but we haven't weren't able to hold it. Yeah, no, that's not for me. That's not my style. But definitely saw some buyers coming in. Not everyone's as big of a coward as I am, coming in, really quickly off of that 20-period moving average. So really, probably however you were viewing crude, if you were open to a pullback, hey, we're 1 day closer. Maybe we pull back a little bit further tomorrow. Maybe we see some upward movement. If you were like me and wanted to see a break or weren't quite sure, you probably haven't changed your mind one way or the other. Break above this, definitely interested in it, no doubt about it. Not a lot to hold us back until we work into that trend line, that 60 or 59.60. We'll see where it exactly lines up. Depends on when it happens, right? Where we will be. But certainly not a lot to see here, but very interesting price action off of those lows today. There is no doubt about that. Somebody out there is excited about crude. So, yeah, for me, honestly, Shirley, it's the break. A pullback I wouldn't be interested in because I'd be worried about it turning over. Right or wrong, that's how I would feel. We pull back a little bit further. Now all of a sudden we're breaking short-term averages. The 9's crossing below the 20 and starting to fall down. I would just feel uncomfortable with it. So for me right now, it's the break or bust. Now, a week from now, if that's how it wants to develop, that definitely can change, as we know. But right now, I'm with you, Abel. A break above that, I like pretty solid kind of a failed break of 55, but that would be a secondary break, not a lot of resistance. That's the one I like a lot more than a pullback opportunity. But again, I understand that that's just me. Not everybody feels the same way about things that I do, and I wouldn't expect them to. If everybody was me, life would be really boring. Although I'd always have someone to play video games with. I got three brothers, and they all are nerds and love to play video games. So I always have someone to play video games with, and it's been that way for years. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for the market recap here today. But fairly uneventful day. Again, we've seen this a lot over the course of the month. Uneventful day from a broad market perspective, just kind of more of the same. We're very interesting on a stock basis. Right, Cody moved into TXN. I don't know if you're still with us, Cody, but moved in on this TXN pullback. Nice gap here today, kind of going with the semiconductors. Pretty strong day in the semiconductors. Nice move. So we're seeing individual stocks move. We're seeing just absolute nightmares. Things like EA. Huge gap down. We. Individually, yeah, there's still some action out there. Collectively, we are taking a bit of a breather right now, no doubt about it, which is a good thing, right? No doubt about it. We love when things just keep moving our way, but nothing goes straight up, nothing goes straight down, or at least not for long. So yeah, I saw MU breaking out, and when I here today, were they able to close? I figured they probably did close. Yeah, that's an interesting breakout, I think, on MU here today. For sure. And also AMAT, let's take a quick peek at them real quick. Yeah, they got that 200 lumen right above them. If you made me pick which one I like better, I'd probably lean to Micron personally because it's a little more room. This falling 200 scares me a lot more than a flat 200, especially in the short term. Right or wrong, I expect it to work into it, pull back. Maybe it takes another run, and maybe it ends up being, a major level of resistance. So if I had to pick, I would prefer MU just because it seems like there's a little clearer path. But my opinion aside, another nice little break, and definitely a break out of some short-term, intraday resistance here today. So yeah, we saw some pretty good movement in the semiconductors here today, no doubt about it. Good days for semis, bad days for games, and a good day for several companies that came out with some pretty decent earnings. And that's just the market that we find ourselves in. And I think that's a good market to be in. I much prefer a stock picker market to an all or nothing market where we look at that heat map and everything's a deep shade of red or a bright shade of green and everything always looks the same. Well, I'll deal with it because the market doesn't care what I like or don't like. But I will always, if you give me a choice, I'm with you, Abel. Give me the stock pickers market. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do us for the market recap today. But as always, you guys, it is certainly my pleasure. I always appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for joining me. If you are new around here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can be alerted anytime we got something new going on over here on our YouTube channel. And be sure to join us over at Tackle Trading on Twitter as well to keep up with some of the things we're running into throughout the course of the market day. If I haven't got you added and you need me to, just yell at me over at Frank Martin 23 on Twitter, and I will get you added to our list, or just say hello if you want to. I'm never too far away. I'm always happy to say hello. So if you enjoyed the market recap, it is always helpful and appreciated if you do give it a thumbs up, just to let us know that we're on the right track and to let YouTube know that we are on the right track as well. If you're catching the recap later, I know a lot of you guys, hey, I see you. And it's always great to hang out with you. But I know sometimes this is a weird time, for the scheduling, right? The halftime report's lunch for our friends on the East Coast. This is a weird time. It's work's not over on the East Coast. It's 2:30 here in Utah. So I know a lot of you watch the recap on the replay. And if you ever have anything you want to add, by all means, feel free to comment in the comment section. We're always excited to see what you like to say. I always love to get other traders' perspectives. So don't be afraid to let me know what you're seeing. If you're seeing things a little different than me, I don't mind that at all. So don't be afraid to do that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, get the heck out of here. You guys, as always, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Get ready to rock and roll on Thursday. We will see you same time and channel tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.